Hi friends, it's Sarah. You know, I love making the costume videos, but they do take a fair bit of research and time. And so I've decided to start in between, making some short videos, just talking about some media that I love. And the first one was my Farscape video. And this time, I am going to talk about why I love Harold and Maude. Harold and Maude came into my life in 1997. I was a 17-year-old goth girl, and I had just made a new friend. The kind of instant friendship you make when you're young, or apparently during a pandemic. And she was as obsessed with Alice in Chains as I was with Trent Reznor, and we were both falling in love with ridiculous goth boys who wanted to be Eric Draven. Welcome to 1997. She and her hippie dad lived in this little place just within walking distance of Saskatoon's best video store. And her house was warm and inviting and everything that my home wasn't at the time. And we used to have sleepovers and watch movies. And one weekend morning, she put in this old VHS tape and introduced me to Harold and Maude. So how do you describe Harold and Maude? Well, my film prof would want me to point out that it was released in 1971, directed by Hal Ashby and written by Colin Higgins. So how else would you describe Harold and Maude? Well, I sometimes joke that it is the manic pixie octogenarian film. Or you could say it is the definition of bittersweet put to film. Or lessons in existential joy. It is what it is. It's Harold and Maude. This is Harold. Harold is lonely. Actually, lonely isn't a big enough word for what Harold is. And he lives with his narcissist mother, who is played with an elegant acidity by Vivian Pickles.
I suppose you think that's very funny, Harold.
And Harold has taken to staging elaborate fake suicide attempts for her benefit?
No. I would not say benefit.
That's Harold, a goth before goths existed. Harold goes to funerals for fun, and that's where he meets Maude. This is Maude. She's 79, and she's out of fucks to give. She's gonna be herself. She's just gonna be herself. And they develop a friendship, which deepens to love. But for me, this film is ultimately always about the friendship. Maybe that's because I know friendship better than I know love. But it is. It's about friendship for me. There have been few characters in film that I identify more with than Harold. Bud Cort plays him with this naked vulnerability. He just expresses everything with his eyes. Harold, for me, is the lost, lonely child in all of us. I think all of us have that. A lot of us have that. The piece of us that longs to be seen and to be understood. And so when Maude does see him, she sees us. And when she teaches him about joy and love and life, she is teaching us. I joke about Maude being the manic pixie octogenarian. And I think that's because so many films have tried to capture this idea of a woman who's teaching a sad man how to live. But those films are missing the soul of what Harold and Maude is. Because this kind of philosophy might come off as trite from some, but not from Maude. Maude isn't a wide-eyed ingenue. Maude is a concentration camp survivor. We don't know a lot of her backstory, but we know enough. Maude has seen some shit. So when she chooses to say,
Well, they're my species.
She knows exactly what she's choosing to love. She knows how hard life can be, and she chooses to focus on the good parts. And that is why I love Maude. And Ruth Gordon plays her with such warmth. I just want to stay in her cozy train car. I want to drink oat straw tea and eat ginger pie and listen to Cat Stevens and just be in her presence. And that is the film. It's two people forming a friendship that becomes love. It's that simple. And yet, as Maude tells us repeatedly, simple can be glorious. In a scene I love in the film, Maude talks about Colonel Dreyfus, who was imprisoned on an African island. And she says how out of his window he used to see birds he thought were glorious. And later he learned that they were only seagulls. But to Maude,
For me, they will always be glorious birds.
and that is this film. Simple, but beautiful because of it. Beautiful in its uniqueness. But what makes Harold and Maude truly special is that though it is about friendship and love and joy, the joy isn't endless. It is a bittersweet film. Because joy is not endless. But just because joy is fleeting doesn't mean we shouldn't embrace it. Embrace it while we have it. To get a little personal for a moment, a little more personal. For the last few years, I have been mourning a friendship. Not the one with the girl I watched the film with, but one that was very special and was home to me, was family to me. And when it faded away, as sometimes happens, I found it hard to embrace new friendships and to lean in. But in these last few months, in this strange, not normal of the pandemic, some new friendships have come my way that are very special and that are bringing me great joy. And I am choosing to lean in and embrace that. And I think Maude would approve. But to get back to Harold and Maude, and my point, if I have a point, this is a bit of a ramble. I loved this film at first sight, and over the years, it has become a comfort watch to me, where I go to for renewal, for rest, to feed my soul, as much as that is a cliche. Even just listening to the music makes me smile. It is a simple story, but in its simplicity, it is glorious. And that is why I love Harold and Maude. You know, it's been 20 years, more than 20 years, and I honestly don't remember that girl's name. The friendship didn't last, and it didn't need to. But I do remember that living room, and that morning, with our bag of sweets from the local 7-Eleven, and that old VHS tape, and her introducing me to Harold and Maude. And honestly, I think seagulls are glorious birds.